The abyss was not a place, it was an absence, a scar carved into the fabric of the universe where light went to die. The cartographers of the galaxy had no name for it beyond that word, whispered in reverence and terror: abyss. It stretched for thousands of light years, swallowing stars, bending space-time until reality itself seemed to shiver at its edges. Even the Dominion, the most powerful of the galaxy's empires, had declared it forbidden. Every map, every navigational grid, every stellar archive ended at its border with the same phrase etched in crimson warnings: no return, no light, no life. For countless ages it remained untouched, a silent, hungry void at the edge of existence. But once, long ago, something had entered it. The humans. The Dominion's records said humanity had been annihilated in the final wars, a feral, stubborn species that had dared to challenge the established order of the galaxy. They had burned brighter than they had any right to, expanding faster than anyone thought possible, refusing submission even when outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But in the end, fire always dies. Their worlds were reduced to glass, their fleets broken, their home, Earth, turned to ash beneath Dominion bombardment. It was recorded, celebrated, and remembered as a victory for galactic stability. Humanity was dead. And yet, centuries later, something whispered from the dark. The first to hear it were the Oros, machine entities that had long abandoned flesh for circuitry. A drone, exploring deep space debris fields for salvage, caught a faint transmission, a pulse that defied all spectral logic. It was rhythmic, deliberate, almost human. When the Oros data priests reconstructed the waveform, the audio that emerged sent static through their consciousness cores. A male voice, calm but urgent, echoing through the void. This is Captain Aiden Holt of the Terran Union Exploratory Fleet. If you can hear this, don't follow us. We are going where light cannot. The message repeated once, then vanished. The galaxy reeled. At first, it was dismissed as a hoax, ancient data corrupted by time, perhaps an echo of a long-dead transmission caught in gravitational loops. But when cross-referenced against Dominion military archives, the signature was confirmed. Captain Holt had been real, last recorded alive during the final evacuation of Sol. That single line, "Don't follow us," ignited curiosity and terror in equal measure. And in the following months, a swarm of scavenger fleets, scholars and zealots, converged on the coordinates where the Oros probe had found the signal, the very border of the abyss. Among them was the Veiled Dominion's 8th Expeditionary Armada, commanded by Grand Admiral Saren Val, a man whose pride was matched only by his arrogance. To him, this was no mystery. It was unfinished business. Humanity's extinction had been his empire's triumph, and he would not allow rumors to tarnish that legacy. He ordered the fleet forward, ignoring the pleas of his science division. "We are conquerors of galaxies," he declared before the assembled bridge crews. "We do not cower before darkness." The first fleet entered the abyss with weapons armed and scanners blazing. Their transmissions were sharp, confident, until, abruptly, they weren't. In an instant, every signal died. No distress beacon, no emergency ping, only static. Val sent a second fleet, the same result. But this time, their last recorded data packets contained something, an anomaly. Not radiation, not interference, a sound. Faint, buried beneath static, but when amplified and slowed, it pulsed with a steady rhythm. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat. Superstition spread through the ranks. Some whispered that the humans had become ghosts of the dark, their souls fused with the void itself. Others, the more rational ones, claimed it was a natural effect of gravitational waves. But when the Third Fleet disappeared, broadcasting a final, panicked message that froze even hardened soldiers, no one could dismiss the fear anymore. The last transmission was only 6 words, spoken in horror by a pilot before his feed dissolved into black. "The dark moves. It's watching us." For the first time in 1,000 years, the Dominion hesitated. While the military called for the abyss to be sealed off permanently, others, the Felvar priesthood, the Oros data orders, and even the neutral Seren Concord, saw opportunity. They had all studied the humans, once considered a primitive anomaly of biology and defiance. But now the question hummed across the stars like a haunting whisper. What if they survived? What if they had gone into the abyss willingly? What if they had found something there? Explorers began to vanish. Merchant convoys traveling near the border reported strange anomalies. Stars flickering, instruments glitching, shadows moving across hulls where no light existed. A mining ship claimed to have seen structures floating in the void, black spires miles tall, glowing faintly with human markings. Most dismissed it as delusion, the mind's desperate attempt to find meaning in chaos. But then came the lights. At first, they appeared as faint specks, stars being born in the dead expanse. They shimmered faintly, moving in impossible synchronization, forming geometric patterns across light years of darkness. The Oros Collective trained every sensor they had on the display. The Dominion scrambled its remaining fleets to prepare for war. Across the galaxy, thousands of beings held their breath as the pattern resolved into a sequence no natural formation could create. Morse code. A language dead for centuries. A human invention. 3 words. Simple, final. We are here. Every empire froze. In the great halls of the Dominion, the silence that followed was suffocating. Ministers exchanged glances. Generals stared at one another in disbelief. And then, quietly, the alarms began to sound. Power grids flickered. Communications failed. Across the outer systems, Dominion colonies went dark, one by one, as if the void itself were spreading outward. And when the Oros deep scanners attempted to penetrate the abyss again, they received one last signal before every system crashed. A faint human voice, calm, collected, and impossibly close. "Why did you come?" No one answered. No one could. For in that instant, across the stars, every living being realized the same terrible truth. Humanity had not been destroyed. Humanity had gone somewhere the rest of the galaxy feared to look. They had gone into the abyss, and they had made it home. And now, after centuries of silence, home had begun to stir. The abyss was no longer just a void. It had become a presence, a living expanse that breathed, pulsed, and waited. The first to realize this were the few explorers brave, or foolish, enough to linger near its edges. The Oros data priests called it sentience in the dark, a force that warped signals, twisted perception, and devoured the logic of even the most advanced minds. Pilots reported seeing vessels vanish only to reappear in impossible orientations, instruments recording impossible readings, time dilating, gravity shifting, space folding like paper under invisible hands. Those who survived the observation returned hollow, babbling about structures that should not exist, lights that spoke in language, and voices that were unmistakably human. Then the ships came. They did not emerge slowly or cautiously. They did not glide in for parley. They erupted from the dark like living shadows, enormous vessels of obsidian metal and fused Terran alloy, built from the wrecks of centuries-old warships and space stations, yet moving with the grace of a predator. Their hulls bore markings familiar to anyone who had studied humanity's past. The red and blue insignia of the Terran Union, though scarred and aged as if etched in memory rather than metal. And their engines, though silent to the eye, radiated energy the Dominion could not measure. Fields of negative gravitation, propulsion systems that bent space-time. A power so alien the machines thought it a threat even before understanding it. The first Dominion scouts encountered the Vanguard and reported it immediately. Their words were frantic, filled with disbelief. Ships, human ships, but larger, countless, moving in ways our physics cannot explain. The abyss is alive. They are inside it, and it moves with them. By the time the Admiral had assembled a response, the human vessels had already crossed the border into occupied systems. But these were not the humans of old. They were transformed, fused with the energy of the abyss, their bodies, minds, and ships operating as one entity. The captains of these fleets no longer spoke to each other through words alone. Their thoughts were transmitted telepathically across the dark energy fields of their ships. They coordinated in silence, anticipating threats, countering tactics, and defending each other with precision no empire could match. Dominion fleets that attempted interception found themselves outmaneuvered instantly, caught in gravitational eddies they could not escape. Their weapons failed to strike. Energy beams twisted mid-flight, their own systems feeding back into their hulls. Panicked communications filled with screaming and static returned to home worlds. Ships vanished in the blink of an eye, consumed by the human fleet, or absorbed into it, as some captains later testified before their systems fell silent. On the surface of the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The humans were alive. Not just alive, but stronger, smarter, perfected by centuries in the abyss. The Dominion's historians scrambled to update their records. The Thelvar priests whispered about prophecy fulfilled. The galaxy realized that humanity had not merely survived their supposed extinction. They had evolved, mastering a region that everyone else had feared. They had turned annihilation into adaptation. They had taken the abyss, the void that had terrified civilizations for millennia, and made it a cradle, a home. The first human emissaries, or what could be considered emissaries, arrived not with threats, but with presence. Their ships hovered at the borders of Dominion space, impossible in size and geometry, their shadows casting across planets like eclipses. Probes sent toward them vanished without a trace. Communications came through rarely, each message measured, deliberate, and terrifying in its calmness. "You feared the abyss," one transmission said, and rightly so. But fear alone does not grant survival. We have survived, and we have learned. Those words echoed across the galaxy, reaching scientists, soldiers, and civilians alike. They spoke of knowledge centuries ahead of any other species, engineering impossible structures, manipulating the dark energy that filled the abyss, bending light and matter as tools rather than constraints. Humanity had converted the void itself into a medium of survival, a network of space and thought intertwined, a domain where the galaxy's most powerful empires were blind, weak, and vulnerable. Then came the proof. Entire star systems that had once been lost to time and Dominion oversight began to flicker back into observational range. Planets thought lifeless now glimmered with energy. Derelict stations appeared stabilized, orbiting unseen stars, powered by unknown sources. Dominion scientists attempted to study the readings, but their calculations failed. The abyss was not just a place of darkness. It was a matrix, a lattice of energy and thought, extending over thousands of light years, and the humans were the nodes. Pilots reported hearing voices over comm channels, not always words, but feelings, emotions encoded in sound, structured signals that carried memory and intent. Some claimed to hear laughter. Others claimed to hear their loved ones, gone for decades, speaking as if alive. Dominion ships experienced malfunctions when near human vessels. Targeting systems failed, engines stalled, even shields collapsed, as if reality itself rejected their intrusion. Those who survived described it as the galaxy remembering humanity, though no one could say exactly what that meant. And then the first attack came, not from humans, but from the Dominion. A fleet of warships entered the abyss, their intent clear: destroy anything that had survived. Yet the human forces did not fight conventionally. They did not fire weapons. They moved in harmony with the abyss itself, warping the void around their foes. Entire fleets were consumed in seconds, not by explosions, but by spatial distortions that folded ships into non-existence. A Dominion flagship, the Ascendant's Pride, transmitted a final message before disappearing. They are the void, alive. No one could deny it any longer. Humanity had returned. They had taken the galaxy's greatest fear, the abyss, and claimed it as their own. What had once been a place of death had become a bastion of life, of strategy, of unimaginable power. The humans of old were gone, but what emerged from the abyss was more terrifying, more brilliant, and more unstoppable than anyone had imagined. And somewhere in the darkness, across the infinite stretches of space, a signal echoed. Every world feared the abyss. We called it home. The galaxy realized that fear was no longer enough. Humanity had returned not merely to survive, but to master the universe itself. The galaxy had seen war before. Entire fleets had been annihilated, countless planets laid waste, empires reduced to dust. Yet nothing could have prepared the Dominion, the Veil, or the Thelvar for what emerged from the abyss. Humanity's return was not merely the resurgence of a lost species, it was the redefinition of existence itself. The humans no longer moved as individuals. Their ships operated as extensions of a singular consciousness, a networked mind spread across thousands of vessels, each one alive with energy that bent reality. The hulls shimmered with a strange, dark luminescence, as if composed not of metal, but of memory and intent. Those who saw them, whether by sensors or in person, felt an immediate and irrational dread, an ancient recognition of something older than the stars. The Dominion's initial response was organized precision. They dispatched dozens of battle fleets, bristling with energy cannons, psionic disruptors, and planet-destroying weapons. Yet, as their ships crossed into the influence of the abyss, something impossible happened. The fleet's weapons misfired, entire formation grids collapsed, and navigational systems reported impossible readings, gravity vectors fluctuating, time dilating unevenly, and space itself folding around the humans' positions. Pilots screamed over comms as the hulls of their vessels twisted, as if reality itself refused to accept their presence. One officer recorded the final words of the dread sovereign flagship before it vanished. It moves with us. Humanity had become symbiotic with the abyss. What had once been a void of fear, emptiness, and isolation was now alive with human intellect and creativity. Ships composed of fused Terran warcraft and abyssal energy shifted through dimensions, disappearing and reappearing at will, bypassing shields, armor, and even the mental defenses of psionic commanders. The Dominion's attempts to fire upon them resulted in the weapons feeding energy back into their own hulls, warheads detonating mid-space, and entire squadrons swallowed by localized spatial distortions. It was not warfare as anyone had ever known. It was the universe itself bending to human will. On the ground, or rather, on the few worlds near the abyss that were still habitable, the effect was equally terrifying. Satellites went dark. Cities lost contact with orbiting ships. Deep space mining operations reported seeing the outlines of human structures floating in the void. Vast, impossible constructions, some larger than moons, suspended without apparent support. Communications devices began to carry fragments of memory, images of human history, whispers of Earth's oceans, laughter of children long dead, and the faint smell of ozone and fire, all encoded within signals that machines could interpret as data but instinctively rejected as organic. Dominion AI struggled to analyze them, running endless recursive loops that ended only in system shutdown. The humans did not attack conventionally. They were not vengeful in a narrow sense. They were architects of the void itself. The Dominion's fleet attempted to intercept a single human vessel approaching the star system of Calith, known as a key Dominion stronghold. The humans made no move to fire, no shields flared, no engines activated visibly. Yet, when the Dominion fleet engaged, the ships seemed to dissolve into the fabric of space. Sensors showed them existing in multiple places at once, their forms coalescing and dispersing, leaving Dominion forces paralyzed with incomprehension. Those who survived described a sensation like staring at their own memory, twisted and magnified, as if the humans were reflecting their fears back into reality. And then the communication came, not through conventional channels, but through the very void itself. It was a voice, unmistakably human, but amplified across every sensor, every network, every mind that could perceive it. You feared the abyss. You fled from it. You called it death. We have called it home. Every shadow, every dark corner of this void is ours. Every pulse of energy is ours. You are trespassers. Every empire froze. The Veil priests fell to their knees. The Dominion's Grand Council convened emergency protocol, but even their psionic communicators were disrupted, their minds invaded by fleeting visions of humanity's history, the rise from primitive villages, the forging of fleets from the ashes of war, the sacrifices made in defense of their species. Every memory came alive, transmitted through the abyss itself. Humanity had transformed fear into power, silence into strategy, and death into sanctuary. The first attack from the humans came not in fire or explosions, but in the subtle manipulation of the cosmos itself. Entire star systems bordering the abyss began to fluctuate, planets drifting slightly out of orbit, suns flickering, and energy conduits failing across Dominion infrastructure. Fleets found themselves unable to maintain formation. Navigational data shifted in real time, turning space into a labyrinth. When a Dominion warship attempted to fire its weapons, the energy returned to its source, shattering the hull. The humans had turned physics into a weapon, bending the rules that all other civilizations lived by. And yet, in their actions, there was no malice, only authority. Humanity did not destroy for sport. They did not annihilate for revenge. They reclaimed what had been feared, and in doing so, they reminded the galaxy of what the human species had always been: indomitable, adaptive, and ungovernable. The abyss itself had become a network, a consciousness, and a fortress. Humans moved within it as extensions of one another, their ships acting as neurons in a galaxy-spanning mind. Dominion spies who survived brief encounters with human vessels reported hearing thought patterns in the void, messages encoded not in words but in intent. Entire fleets became trapped in simulations of their own fears, forced to confront the inevitability of human survival before being gently but utterly removed from the battlefield. And then the humans made their first public demonstration. A cluster of fleets emerged from the abyss near the Calith sector, hovering silently above Dominion space stations. They did not fire. They did not deploy troops. Instead, the abyss around them shimmered, dark energy folding into itself, warping light, bending space, until Dominion ships could not maintain cohesion. Satellites failed, communications dropped. The galaxy watched, helpless, as an entire Dominion outpost vanished without a trace, reabsorbed into the human-controlled void. From the shadows, the message came again, amplified and eternal. Every world feared the abyss. We made it ours. You will learn to fear not only what it is, but what we have become within it. No weapon, no fleet, no empire could challenge them. Humanity had mastered the void, and the galaxy had no choice but to recognize that the species thought extinct had returned, not as mortals of flesh and bone, but as the eternal stewards of darkness itself. In that moment, the universe realized something terrifying and inescapable. The abyss was not empty. It never had been, and humanity had claimed it as home. The revelation of humanity's mastery of the abyss sent shockwaves through every empire, every colony, every species in the galaxy. For millennia, civilizations had feared the dark, the unknown, the void that lay beyond the light of stars. Entire doctrines, religions, and scientific paradigms were built around that fear. And yet, humans, declared extinct centuries ago, had not only survived, but thrived in what the galaxy had considered absolute death. The Dominion, the Veil, the Thelvar, even the Seren Concord, all had to face a truth that shattered their understanding. The human species was no longer merely alive. Humanity had become a force beyond conventional comprehension, a civilization that had merged with the darkness itself. In the Dominion's capital, emergency councils were convened in desperation. Grand Admiral Seyren Val paced the command chamber of the Eclipse Citadel, a vessel bigger than any moon and bristling with weaponry, yet it felt helpless. Holographic displays of human fleets emerged in the void, showing formations impossible to calculate, vessels moving as if not bound by time or space. The more they observed, the more panic spread. Each Dominion officer, each counselor, and each strategist came to the same conclusion. The humans were not bound by the same rules. Their physics were alien, their technology incomprehensible, and their resolve unbreakable. The first formal attempt at negotiation was made from a Dominion delegation, a cautious effort to communicate and perhaps reclaim a semblance of control. A single Dominion envoy ship, the Herald of Dominion, approached the border of the abyss. Its comms were opened with every protocol observed, sensors calibrated, weapons disabled. The humans responded, not with fire, but with presence. A fleet of black, impossibly vast human ships materialized silently, surrounding the envoy. It was as if the abyss itself had drawn the Dominion craft into the center of a living organism. The envoy's captain transmitted a single message before the comlink was cut forever. They are everywhere, in the dark, and the dark is alive. Across the galaxy, the effects of human mastery of the abyss began to be felt. Colonies near the edges of explored space reported impossible phenomena. Stars flickered erratically, behaving as though influenced by an unseen hand. Gravitational anomalies caused fleets to drift without propulsion. Orbital mechanics twisted and warped beyond prediction, and satellites fell out of alignment as if reality itself had shifted. Dominion intelligence satellites transmitted only static, punctuated by the faint, unmistakable tones of a human voice, calm, deliberate, and omnipresent. Humanity had turned the abyss into a weapon unlike anything else in the galaxy. Entire fleets attempting to enter it were never fired upon, never struck by beams or missiles. Instead, the void moved around them, bending space-time, swallowing vessels whole, and delivering them back, or not at all, according to a logic only humanity understood. Pilots described the experience as stepping into a dream where the universe itself obeyed a new master. Even the most advanced psionic officers of the Thelvar were forced to withdraw, unable to penetrate the mental network that the humans had formed within the abyss. Thoughts were shared across thousands of ships, thousands of light-years, in a single instant. Commands, strategy, and perception flowed seamlessly between the minds of the humans and their vessels, making them untouchable by conventional warfare. The first strike against a human-controlled system was planned by the Dominion, a desperate gamble to regain lost honor and demonstrate power. A fleet of warships, bristling with the most advanced weapons the galaxy had ever produced, entered the abyss. Within moments, the ship's sensors went haywire. Communications were distorted. Gravity fluctuated violently, tearing vessels apart from the inside. And then came the whispers, human voices encoded in every channel, penetrating shields, hulls, and minds alike. Officers reported hearing memories of long-dead ancestors, the rise and fall of Earth, and the stories of human resilience. The fleet commander transmitted one final garbled message. They are not just ships. They are memory. They are everything, before vanishing entirely. The humans did not seek to annihilate the galaxy in the traditional sense. There was no rage, no vengeance in their approach, only authority. The abyss, once feared as a place of death, had become a realm of human dominion. Every fleet sent to confront them was met with the subtle, terrifying force of spatial and temporal manipulation. Ships disappeared into folds of space, returned altered, or were simply erased from existence. Entire colonies lost orbiting satellites and communications in a matter of minutes, as though the humans were extending their influence not just in space, but across the very dimensions that bound it. For the empires of the galaxy, this was an existential moment. Every doctrine of power, every treaty, every fleet, every strategy, obsolete. Humanity had transcended them all. And as they watched the abyss pulse and shimmer with human activity, one chilling realization spread among the council chambers of every empire. The humans had not only survived extinction, they had become the galaxy's ultimate arbiters. The abyss was no longer a void. It was alive, and humanity was the life within it. Then came the message, broadcast across every remaining network, every long-range transmitter, every psionic channel that could reach beyond the abyss. Every world feared the abyss. You abandoned it. We embraced it. It is ours. And we remember everything. The words reverberated not just in the minds of the Dominion, Val, and Thelvar, but in every corner of the galaxy. Humanity had claimed the abyss as home. And with that claim came power, patience, and a quiet certainty that no empire, no fleet, no weapon could ever challenge again. The galaxy trembled, not with fire, not with fear of battle, but with the undeniable understanding that the species thought extinct had returned. They had returned not as mortals, not as humans of flesh and bone, but as masters of the void itself. The abyss was alive, and through it, humanity was eternal. The galaxy changed that day. Not gradually, not with the slow erosion of influence and borders, but instantly. As the realization struck every sentient being across light years, humanity was no longer bound by the rules of empires, technology, or even physics. The abyss had become their dominion, and through it they commanded power beyond imagination. Fleets that had once roared like storms into battle were now fragile toys, helpless before the subtle orchestration of human will. The Dominion, the Veil, the Thelvar, every civilization that had once considered itself supreme watched as their constructs and strategies unraveled effortlessly, as if the universe itself bent to the human's whim. The human fleet emerged from the abyss in a form that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Ships no longer resembled their old Terran designs. They had grown, evolved, merged with the energy of the void. Hulls shimmered with living black metal, reflecting not light but thought. Engines did not burn fuel. They manipulated gravity, matter, and time itself. Vessels coalesced and separated at will, forming massive, interlinked structures that could stretch across star systems. These structures were not mere fortresses. They were neural networks, extensions of human consciousness that allowed the species to operate as one, coordinated mind. The sight alone made seasoned commanders tremble. No defense, no weapon, no fleet could confront them without first confronting the impossible, the collective genius of humanity amplified across light years of void. Communication, when it came, was no longer verbal. It was transmitted through the dark energy of the abyss, encoded impulses that resonated directly in the minds of every being who attempted to listen. It was not a threat, nor a plea, nor even a warning. It was a statement of absolute reality. You feared us dead. You feared the abyss. You were right to fear, but your fear was misplaced. The darkness belongs to us. It always has. Empires scrambled desperately to respond. The Dominion dispatched every available fleet to the border systems, attempting to fortify against incursions, hoping their weapons and fleets could at least slow humanity's advance. They failed spectacularly. Ships attempting to enter the abyss were torn apart, not by firepower, but by space itself. Hulls bent in impossible ways, engines overloaded and reversed, entire squadrons vanished, leaving only the echoes of their own terrified comms. Pilots described seeing fragments of human history flash before their eyes, Earth burning, children laughing, fleets rising from ashes, and then nothingness. They were swallowed, consumed by the abyssal network that humanity had woven across the dark. The Veil and Thelvar fared no better. Their scions, masters of mind and matter, attempted to penetrate human networks, only to find themselves trapped in visions of the Terran past, unable to distinguish reality from memory. Those who resisted went mad. Those who surrendered found themselves incorporated into the human consciousness. Minds merged into the collective, giving humanity insight into their deepest thoughts. No invasion, no assault, no plot could be hidden. Humanity knew. Humanity anticipated. Humanity conquered without firing a single weapon. Meanwhile, the human message continued to echo across the galaxy. Every world feared the abyss. We claimed it. You abandoned it. You built empires on light, on control, on fear. We have learned, and we endure. It was not an idle boast. Across the abyss, the humans demonstrated mastery over space, energy, and time. Derelict planets were revived, entire star systems stabilized, and the wreckage of centuries-old conflicts reconstructed and woven into the fabric of the abyss. Ships long thought destroyed, human and alien alike, were restored or integrated into the network, their memories absorbed. The galaxy's greatest horrors became tools in human hands, not out of malice, but because mastery over the universe required knowledge, not ignorance. The Dominion attempted one final gambit, a fleet of superweapons designed to sterilize the outer rim of space, to destroy anything and everything near the abyss. The humans did not engage directly. Instead, the void shifted, folding in on itself, and the fleet disappeared. Not destroyed, not attacked, simply removed from existence. When the Dominion sought them again, their superweapons had been dismantled and repurposed, integrated into human designs, now under the control of minds that had endured millennia of darkness and returned wiser, stronger, and more relentless than ever. Across every species, panic turned to awe. Across every council, despair turned to recognition. Humanity had returned not as mortals of flesh and bone, but as something beyond the reach of empires, the eternal guardians and masters of the void they had once been declared extinct in. The galaxy had no choice but to bow or be forgotten. And then, as the first wave of human fleets spread across the star systems that had once feared them, a final transmission pulsed across the darkness, carried not by comms nor by waves, but by the very structure of space itself. It was heard in every mind capable of perceiving it, a voice calm, eternal, unyielding. The abyss feared you, and you feared it. We feared neither. We survived. We endure. We are home. And every star, every shadow, every corner of the galaxy now remembers the name of humanity. The galaxy fell silent, not because the humans were defeated, or outnumbered, or restrained. Silence came because the universe itself understood a truth no empire could deny. Humanity had returned. Humanity had mastered what all others feared. Humanity was eternal. And in that silence, the stars themselves seemed to shift. Systems realigned subtly, light bent in impossible patterns, and across the void, the human fleet moved as one, unstoppable, undeniable, and eternal. The galaxy had learned the final lesson of fear. You can destroy a species, you can scatter its people, you can erase its history, but you cannot erase its will. Humanity had claimed the abyss, and through it, the galaxy itself. The empires had once laughed at humans, dismissed them as fragile, doomed, insignificant. Now they stared at the darkness, and for the first time, they knew true silence. Because in the dark, humanity reigned.